Well, hello everyone. I was checking to see if the phone was turned the right way this time, and it is. So this is what I'm prepping today. So if you go on a nature walk, you can pick these up and they make great fire starters. And this is a project I usually like to do after the gardening is all done. But we have these and they've been sitting there for quite some time. I keep this next to the wood burner. And what I want to do is cover them in wax. This is what I use for my wax. I've known a lot of people who will just take an old pan and use it on the stovetop, and that works great. I didn't buy this in the thrift store, but if you want one similar to this, it's like a hand waxer, things like that. You could put your hand or your foot in here, and it really works to get the rough areas off your feet very nicely if you're like me and barefoot outside all the time. This is mine's Dr. Scholl's. I've seen other brands, but usually I see these for $3.99, $4.99, and $5.99 in the thrift stores. And if you have them filled with wax in the thrift store, count yourself blessed, because that's a lot of wax. So what I'm going to do now is just plug mine in. And making fire starters is really easy. Sometimes it can be a little messy. I've made fire starters with egg crates, put dryer lint in them, and pour wax on them over top of newspaper, of course, so that you don't make a holy mess. But what I'm going to do this time is, once this wax melts, which takes about 90 minutes for that wax to melt, I'm just going to dunk the pine cones in there. And what's really nice is if you have red or green or a nice fall color, because then they're kind of decorative up until the time you burn them. The first time I did this, they were so nice I didn't want to burn them, but we did anyway because that was their purpose. But my wax is just like a reddish pink, so it'll serve its purpose. Now normally when you're using this wax melter for only hand or feet purposes, you buy this paraffin wax, and this one happens to be scented like vanilla beans. But I don't do that because I very rarely use this for hands or feet. I actually just put my candle wax in there because mostly it's a tool. And if you buy it new, I think it's around $30. I did not buy mine used, and I think it was a gift. I can't remember. I've had it for so long, and I just keep it in the bottom of the cabinet. So this is what I'm prepping today, and I'll be back when the wax melts. And in the meantime, I will show you what else I'm doing here. I actually shred a lot of this paperboard. I could put it in the garden under the mulch like it is, but I like to use it as a mulch around the plants and things. And if you're going to put it in your compost, it'll shred up or it'll compost a lot quicker if it's shredded. So I will go ahead and shred old telephone books, nothing that's glossy paper, paperboard and things like that. And then when it gets nice and shredded in the shredder, it just goes in the garden as a mulch. So that's I'll be doing that. I want to get this whole stack done today. My son eats a lot of yogurt, so I picked these. He saves these for me. And now I'm going to go do taxes. Yes, I know. But we had an automatic extension, so we can get those done. So this is what I do with the shredded paper. I pulled out these weeds, and this is that morning glory. It just reseeds so prolifically every year. It's a pretty plant, but if you let it, it will take over everything, and it'll even grow up a tomato plant. So there it is. There's some, and if I don't get that off, these two plants will be enough to just suffocate the garden again next year. Don't let that take over. That's horseradish. It also takes over, and it's just a little slower, but it'll take over. It creeps, and you'll find it where you didn't expect it. But I can see it right down there. I've got some weeding to do. But for right now, just going to take this spread it out over the cardboard. And I don't put cardboard back there because that's the area where I like to plant. So I will just put the paper there. Probably not going to put anything in there this year. I saved these plastic containers for winter sowing, which I haven't done much of. But I used to keep them in bags, and the bags were plastic, like the Perlite bags, and they degrade terribly, so I'm trying to not use those anymore. So if I don't, they blow all over the yard, and they blow down in through the field, which is super inconvenient. Nobody wants plastic in their hay bales, so I keep them in this a little fenced-in area, because that's pretty much all I can do. It doesn't look great, but it's all I can do for now. So that's it. That's what I do with the shredded paper, and the rain will come, smash it down, the worms will eat it, it'll attract worms. And of course, like, I'll do envelopes in there, shred envelopes that come in the mail, but if they've got those little plastic windows in them, I just take those out. Nothing but paper, no shiny paper. And that's what I do with the shredded paper. I'm trying to keep everything out of the landfill that I can. Okay, I'm back to make my fire starters. It's been 100 minutes, yeah. Almost 2 hours, yeah, 20 minutes shy or so, however that works. No, it was 10 and now it's 11:40, so there you go. Math and me aren't getting along today. So you can see it's not all entirely melted, but when I used to do this, melting hot wax over the stove in a pot or something, the wax used to get incredibly hot. Using this item that is meant for your body to enter, your hands or your feet, it doesn't get that hot. So although it would be nice to have an old pair of tongs that I've thrown away, this will work fine with dipping it with my hands. And then I have some wax paper laid out so that it doesn't make the countertop messy, which if wax dries, you just chip it off anyway. So what else I did here is I usually have these cardboard egg cartons, but we gave them all away. So I took my eggs, what I could out of my container, and I stuffed that with dryer lint, so you can see how that'll work in here. And then I also just grabbed a nice little tight ball of dryer lint to see. I don't know how that's going to work, so I'm going to go ahead and dip that in there first. We'll just see if it'll go down there. Yeah, it's eventually sinking. So I'm just going to let that soak up the wax, and I don't think it needs a lot because it still has to stay flammable. Yeah, and it's sticking to my hands a little bit. So it also is beneficial to have the wax paper closer to you so that your item doesn't end up dripping on your floor. Yeah, I'm not real sure I like how that works out, because when you do use this for your hands, you don't want dryer lint all over your hands if your wax stays, if your dryer lint stays inside the wax. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this whole 4-section egg crate in there. Now when you use this for a fire starter, you would actually cut these apart. One egg cell full of dryer lint and wax is enough to start a fire. I don't add any sort of wick or anything. So I'm just holding that down until the bubbles go away. Also inside there I put some fiberfill that the dogs pulled out of their bed. They've been bad again. Yeah, a bug on my arm. I was just out in the garden. Okay, so now I'm just going to pull that out of there. So this is not absolutely necessary to do if you know how to start a fire, but it's nice if you don't know how to start a fire, or if sometimes you have problematic wood or a problematic person. These are just nice to have around. I know a woman who used to make these and cut them up and use them as gifts because she didn't have a lot of money. A lot of people like homemade gifts. Some people you'd give that to and they would just be offended. But that's the kind of person who you really need to stay away from. One year for Christmas, when my oldest was only 6, so that was 29 years ago, we took Pretty Net Tulle, or no, that was Liz. That was my daughter. I did that. Pretty Net Tulle, and put fresh potpourri in it and tied it with a ribbon. It was a gift that she could make herself. What we did with my son when he was younger, one of my sons, he went and we took sponges and cut them in the shape of Christmas bells by tracing them on a cookie cutter, and dipped them in tempera paint, and then made stamps on newspaper, and that was the gift wrap. So he had homemade gift wrap. So that saved, it's reduce, reuse, recycle, or don't buy it all. So we didn't have to buy the paint. We had the paint, the sponges were under the sink, and we had the cookie cutters, and the newspaper was free. So we saved a little bit of money by not buying wrapping paper. Now my daughter-in-law, she'll get you a gift, but she just puts it in the bag. She doesn't even wrap a gift. She's like, here's your gift. So I just put that there because it was getting a little warm on my hand. So I don't like that stringy there, and I will definitely take that off. But now this has to go over to the waxed paper as well. I'm going to put it over here so that when let me see if I can move my experimental ball. I can. Once that hardens up, I'll see how that might actually work well. But this, like I said, will be cut or ripped apart. If you use a whole lot of wax and then wait until it totally hardens, you can use definitely too much wax, and then you can't get them apart because it's like cutting through a solid candle with a knife. So don't use too much wax. I mean, I've had them where they were the whole dozen egg cells, and I had to smack them on concrete to get them apart. Yeah, I don't like doing that. So, alrighty, so I'm done, I think. Yep. So this is, you can see from the beginning how much wax was in there and how much it's gone down now. So that was enough to do about 30 pine cones, some large and some small, but pretty much all from the same tree. So what I do now that it's still warm is just go ahead and rub down the sides so that all the wax gets back down inside there, and then this wax I'll have to scrape off and put back inside there. And to be honest, sometimes I don't bother, but since you're watching, I will. And then I have these on the waxed paper, and when I remove these from the waxed paper and put them back inside the container, for now I'm moving them over there because I want to clean out the bottom of that container as well. Now this right here, you can leave it on there, or you can just knock some off and drop it in there. But the benefit of having it on wax paper, you can just go ahead and scrape off these pieces and drop them back in there. So like my Bubba always used to say, my Bubba, oh, she had so many different names. Almost every grandchild called her a different name. She loved Bubba. She hated Studda-Bubba. You did not call that woman Studda-Bubba because Bubba meant grandma, but Studda-Bubba meant old woman. I don't know. Yeah. She spoke Bohemian. My grandmother was Bohemian. But anyway, so here we go with this is done, and I'm going to move all these over here, and then I will just, once I get my second hand back, go ahead and scrape all this off, or just pick it up and peel it off of the waxed paper. And there you have how the fire starters are made. While I was doing this, I kind of thought, what are some other ways to use pine cones? Now you could use a pine cone as a fire starter totally without the wax. You could also use lint and cardboard without the wax. So, I mean, is this necessary? No. The wax does keep the fire starters burning longer than they would without. So it's not an absolute necessity, but it's something to do, I guess. I don't know. They kind of help. So you decide whether you want to do that or not. But I was thinking, what else could you use a pine cone for? And the first thing that popped into my head was, of course, decoration. In the winter, I decorate a little bit at the cemetery with the pine cones, really pretty ones. Sometimes they have glitter on them. But you could also like put peanut butter in that. Just put like, and then hang it from a tree for the birds, or you could put it out if you feed the squirrels, but I have no interest in feeding the squirrels. But the birds, yeah, I like the birds. But anyway, that's it. That's pretty much what else I prepped today. So let me know if you've ever done this, if you have a different way of making fire starters, and what you prepped today. Be blessed, everyone.